Hello, it's Anika from Living for Later, and I wanted to take the time in this video to answer a question from one of my videos. Someone left a comment, and a part of her question read, "What helps you to want to hear more from God?" And I thought this was such an excellent question. So I wanted to take the time to address it in this video. So there are a few reasons. The main one, which is just absolutely mind blowing to me, is just the fact that God actually wants to speak to me. Like, the creator of the universe wants to actually talk and share his heart with me. And he also wants to hear my heart. He wants to hear my thoughts, what it is that I'm feeling. He desires a relationship with me. Like, that's something that I am learning not to take for granted. And it's just such a very special thing to me to know that, like, wow, God actually wants to speak to me. And we are in this day and age where people are all about, like, who you know and the connections, and hey, make sure that you connect with so and so, and make sure you have an in with so and so. And listen, none of those important people can compare to God Himself, right? And to know that I don't have to jump through all these hoops and play any games, that He's like, come. Come, my child. I want to talk to you. Come and talk to me. It shifts my perspective, because I think sometimes we can look at our time with the Lord as like something more of a burden as opposed to like a blessing. So I think when we shift our perspective of, oh, I got to go sit and have quiet time with the Lord. Oh, let's just hurry up and get through this, right? When you have that perspective and you see it more as a duty, of course, it can just seem like, ugh. But when you shift your perspective and see it for what it really is, like, wow, God desires intimacy with me. I am loved that much by Him, that He wants to talk to me, that He wants to share His heart with me. At that point, you're like, oh my goodness, this is a privilege. Just think about the most important person that you know, or that person that you want to connect with on a natural level. Like, if you got a text from them saying, hey, I want to talk to you, you wouldn't see it as a burden. You would just be like, oh my goodness. You'd be telling everybody, so and so texted me and they want to have a conversation. And you get excited. Well, how much more should we be excited, right? About spending that time with the Lord, speaking to Him and having Him speak back to us. So I think it comes from just even understanding who He is as Father, that kind of helps it. So it's not, oh, I'm just looking at Him as this distant God. Because I think then it can seem like a chore, right? Okay, whatever. Let's just hurry up and get through this distant God. But when you're like, this is my daddy, right? It just makes such a difference. So that's the first thing that helps me to want to go back to hear what God is saying. The other thing is that the longer I go, the more I realize how much I don't know. So for me, I have tried so many times to operate on my own and to make my own decisions, and to just think, oh, I'm just, I got this figured out. I'm good. And it always ends up a big hot mess. And sometimes you just get to the place where you like, I'm good with these hot messes, right? Like, this is not fun anymore. So I think I'm going to go and talk to God, right? So it just helps me to just stay out of certain situations and making huge mistakes, because I'm 42 years old, and believe me, I've made enough mistakes for you and me by not like pausing and just spending that time in the presence of God. And after a while, you just kind of have to get to that place of saying, it's not worth it. Why not go to God? I don't know it all. I don't have it figured out. And ultimately, He has my best interest at heart. So when I go and I plant myself in His presence, it gives me the direction that I need, right? One of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 3:5-6, where it talks about trust in the Lord with all your heart and to not lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him and He shall direct your path. Well, a part of that is you have to spend that time to really hear how He is directing you. It's not just, oh, it's just going to happen. You have to spend that time with Him. And, I need a lot of directing. And if you're human, you need a lot of directing too. The other thing, which kind of goes hand in hand with this last point that I just made, is that the longer I live, the more I realize that other humans are flawed and they don't know it all. Even people that I just trust completely, I recognize they don't have all the answers. And it's funny because I think I spent so much of my time, even when I first got saved, depending on others to hear the voice of the Lord. And, after a while, when you start to see the flaws in different individuals, even though they love the Lord, it can really make you jaded. And if for me at least, I know that I made an idol out of so many people, and I was depending on them in order to hear the voice of the Lord. And God is like, you could come and you can sit and speak to me directly. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't get godly counsel and ask other people to pray with us to discern certain things, but I feel like sometimes we use that as just the rule at all times, and we never spend that time to really hear from the Lord for ourselves. So the more I go and the more I connect with others, people that I love dearly and I know are connected to God, I see that, they're also flawed as well. So it's good for me to just make it a practice to go directly to the source, so that even if I come to you to ask your counsel, to get, what you're discerning concerning this, I've already spent time with the Lord. So whatever you're saying to me, even if it's something that I'm still trying to figure out, it's something that my spirit can bear witness with, because I've already been in the presence of the Lord trying to seek His face. So I'm trusting that as He speaks to you, I'll be able to know that, hey, yeah, this is what God is really saying, right? So I just recognize that I can't use people and make them God, right? Use people, be in community, use the body of Christ, but keep people in their rightful place and go directly to the source. And to know that I have that free access is just such a beautiful thing. So yeah, those are some of the reasons why I try to stay in that place of wanting to hear more from God. And I do want to say this. I don't want to make it seem like I'm always on the mountaintop, because even though I know what the right answer is, there are moments where I get all the way in my feelings, or I just get lazy, right? And I opt not to just make that time to really just spend in the presence of the Lord and to really hear His voice. Or sometimes I'm just impatient and I'm like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and inevitably I bump my head, and I just have to kind of come back to what I know works. It's not broken. I know that this system works. I know that coming to hear from God is the best thing ever. So when I get all in my flesh and I drift from doing what I know how to do, I bump my head and then I come back. So I don't want to make it seem like, oh yes, Anika just always does it right, because that's not the case at all. But the longer I go, the more inclined I am to say, girl, you better go get in the presence of the Lord, because you already know, left to yourself, it's not going to be a good situation. So yeah. And again, I just want to stress this so much, because this is something that the Lord has really been helping me to see, and then I'm going to end here, is don't see it as a chore. See it as such a privilege. It's an honor to be able to go and sit with God, and to know that He wants you to talk to Him and that He wants to speak back to you. All right. Hope that helps. You be blessed.